What's good, everyone? James here, and now we're here to discuss collecting with Aaron.
Hello there.
What stuff do you collect, Aaron?
So yeah, I'm not really collecting anything actively at the moment, but I like to pick up sort of PS2 games now and then. Um, Not really the expensive ones. I like picking up sort of obscure games just because I think it's a bit more fun, and the price of PS2 games are just through the roof at the moment. So I just like picking up the cheap ones. So that's probably the most active thing I collect. But in the past, I've collected old consoles, old laptops, just stuff like that, and then sold them on.
Fair enough. So, what would you say is good and bad about collecting?
So I think a good thing about collecting is you can sort of preserve the past. So you can, play an original hardware. You can see how the game was originally meant to be played, and um, you can, just experience it how someone in whatever era that console came out in, how they experienced it.
Fair dues. I mean, that is a really good point right there because you're going back in time. You're witnessing this how this thing was made and played, and you can see like the little like compared because I do get why people like original things over like the newer modern things because like they just have a certain feel about them. They have that old clunky feel, like Jack 2 on the PS2, playing that on the original PS2. You can just tell it's from back then. Wow, Jack 2 on the PS4 and 5, it's like, yeah, you can tell it's been like, polished a bit and looks a bit better, which is fine. But I personally am not bothered what it's like. I guess I prefer a bit of a cleaner look to things, but I get why people like the original thing because it just has sort of like a nice grittiness to it.
Yeah, and I guess as well with old consoles, you that's sort of part of like the nostalgia and the charm about it is it's not perfect. It's running at like 25 or 24 frames per second rather than being really polished, and it's it just feels more authentic rather than just having something that's just it just blends in with all the modern games. Whereas if it's obviously on the PS2 or PS1 or whatever console, it's actually like authentic to the experience that you would have had back then.
Yeah, exactly. And games back then, they focused more on the gameplay and the story being good. Well, nowadays they do focus on gameplay and story, but there's a big emphasis around graphics. Like, oh, it looks good. We can just put this all over the gaff and it'll look nice, and people will just buy it anyway. So,
Yeah.
what would
Um,
you say the bad side of collecting is then?
so I think the bad side of collecting is I'll break it down into two bits. The first bit is the cost of it. That is a big
Mm-hmm.
thing. I'm not going to jump ahead with something, but you're paying almost the same price as a modern day game or like a previous generation console game for a game that is just not worth that at all. I mean, even at retail, they weren't originally meant to be valued this high, and people are making a lot of money off of it because if something's nostalgic, you can make money off of it because someone wants to buy it, someone wants to relive their past. So I think that's the bad side is a lot of people are in it for the wrong reasons,
Yeah,
and I think as well. Original hardware won't last forever. I mean, you can look after whatever thing you've got as well as you can, but in 100 years, it's probably not going to be around because it just degrades. It's just the value, just the way things work. So I think if you want to collect stuff, you just got to sort of enjoy it in the moment. But if you want to keep on playing things forever, you're gonna end up like emulating stuff and getting like re-releases on new generation consoles.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a really good point right there. The cost is just ridiculous, man. Collecting just not okay. If you get some old tat or some McDonald's toy, yeah, it's not going to cost that much, is it? Or some fluff or whatever. But if you want the newest, coolest collectibles, if you get the latest, decent sized Lego sets, they're like 80 to 100 quid potentially, depending on what franchise or how many characters are with it, or the exclusivity of the characters, or if the set's been made before, like how the Millennium Falcon's been made multiple times. Loads of factors come into it, and I think it's just companies trying it on. They're thinking, you know what? these people who buy our stuff, these consumers are just going to buy this no matter what. Lego slapped on it, they're going to pay 100 quid for it. Nintendo slapped on it, they're going to pay 100 quid for it. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it is sort of companies trying it on, and at the end of the day, what people need to do if they don't want to have such high prices is just sort of like buy something that's a bit cheaper, and then companies will eventually be forced to lower their prices.
I guess as well. Well, a lot of the companies that are doing this are obviously making money off of products that that the original companies aren't making any money off. So a lot of games, like old fashioned, I keep using games as an example for some reason, but you can apply it to anything. Obviously, if you buy, say, a PS2 game, or you buy like a Lego set or something, in 20 years' time, if you resell that, the original company's not going to get any money from it because it's not theirs anymore. So, and a lot of these companies popping up just to make money off of old products.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you said you had like a second point about collecting being bad. What was that, out of interest?
It sort of relates to something I was going to say later on, but it's not the most important thing in the world. I think a lot of people, because it's easy to get wrapped up in the hype of, thinking, oh, in 30 years' time, this thing I've got could be worth 10 times as much as what I've just paid for it. But that's in 30 years' time, and it's a big if. It might not pan out. And I think a lot of the way that collecting is presented is sort of like gambling to some extent, because you can, let's say you bought 10 games that are valuable now at like £30 each, so it's £300 you've spent. You might think in 10 years' time you could get £50 for each one. So it's just a bit of a gamble, because you could lose a load of money and you could be missing out on things in the meantime because you've spent that money on games or collectibles in general.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, like if you think to yourself, oh man, I've got to collect these games and play them, and you're just thinking, oh man, I'm going to build this collection up or what have you, it is a bit of a dangerous game, because like games, I guess more and more things are becoming digital anyway with PC and online game stores. But if people are collecting games because they're like, oh, I want this nice game case and whatever, that is a scary thing to think of, especially for financially for new games, because they're all 65, 75 quid, etc. So your money can sink very, very, very quick. I think a lot of collecting, I think the reason why a lot of people drop out of collecting, though, is because it's all done when you're younger, when you have a little bit of money off your parents and you buy what you want to buy, for Christmas and what have you. But when you're an adult, you probably think to yourself, like, this thing's 200 quid, bloody hell, I'd just rather spend it on a night out or just anything else than just getting this little collectible just to display and look at it. 200 quid down the drain. I'm not bothered about that. Obviously, it's fine if people are bothered about that, but I feel like that's partly the reason why a lot of people grow out of it. Also, I guess a lot of people are a bit afraid of like being judged as well. Like they might think, oh man, people are going to take the mick out of me if they find out that I've collected a model X-wing ship.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of people that still think, oh, it's just a toy. Why you got that when you're like an adult? But some stuff can hold, sentimental value. But then if you've got like a warehouse full of them, then yeah, that's a bit bad.
Yeah, I mean, when people have stupid amount of collections, a highly daft amount of collectibles, and like just too many collectibles, and it's financially ruining them, and they try and say, oh well, it's got sentimental value to me, and it's like, well, the point of something being sentimental is that it's one thing that's sentimental, or two things, or three things. You can't have a warehouse full of fluff and be like every single piece of fluff is sentimental. It's the point of something being sentimental is that it's rare, that, oh, this item's sentimental to me. You can't have like a million things behind your cupboard that you're just keeping for the sake of hoarding. That's sentimental. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I think as well, with the rise of obviously like YouTube and social media and stuff, it's giving people more of a platform to show off, and the more you want to show off, the more sort of stuff you want to have, because it makes you show off more. So I mean, there's whole YouTube channels that are just dedicated to showing off their collection, buying games, showing off different things, showing off. I keep using games as an example, but you could apply it to anything,
Mm.
like vintage guitars and stuff. You could even say for there's whole channels dedicated to just showing off what they've got and selling it on at a later date, which for some people could be very addicting because they could just think, oh, that seems easy enough. And then
Hmm.
they could make a massive mistake and be potentially thousands of pounds down the drain.
Yeah, exactly. Have you sold much of your collection?
Yeah, I actually have. I had to have a quick think then. Because at one point I wasn't actively collecting, but over the course of about 3 years, I'd picked up a fair amount of stuff. And obviously, I've got quite a small room, so it was all just all over the place, to be honest. And one day I just thought, there's no point having all this. So I just slowly just got rid of a decent amount of stuff. Just sold it to private people and different companies and stuff. So yeah, I don't have that big of a collection anymore. My PS2 game is probably the biggest collection I've got.
Why do you think someone would be addicted to collecting?
I think I touched on it earlier, but I think there is sort of like a gambling aspect to it, and I've made a note here. I've put similar to the stock market because if you look at it's predominantly I'm going to use games again as an example, but like Nintendo cartridges, like N64 things, cartridges. Um, According to some companies, some of them are worth millions. So if you're
Yeah.
gullible enough, or if you think you might have a few of them lying around, you could start thinking, "Oh, I could start selling these and make basically just get rich quick." But you could apply it to anything, and I think a lot of people they sort of get drawn into it. It's sort of like gambling as well.
Fair enough. I mean, in my opinion, I feel like the reason why a lot of people would get addicted, I feel like it's partly like I think maybe like say if you're a kid and your parents said to you, you have to keep your room clean, you have to keep your room clean, you have to keep your room clean, you have to keep your room clean over and over and over again, and you've been really, really disciplined. Then when you become an adult or you get your own place or whatever, you think to yourself, I can do whatever I want now. I'm going to go absolutely ballistic and just collect every single thing I want to make a mess because when you're a kid, you are going to be a bit messy. So if you weren't given that freedom to be a bit messy or have a few toys lying around or whatever, when you're older, you might think, bloody hell, I'm just going to go mad now. I also think it can also come from just feeling like, this show or movie or what have you is sentimental to me. I'm going to buy loads of stuff to show how much I love that show. You know, I'm going to buy loads of Star Wars merch just to prove how much I love Star Wars. When in reality, your love for an IP is just like, it's just how you feel. No one can really measure it. Just because you could have a load of collectibles of fluff or whatever from Breaking Bad. It doesn't mean that you know everything about the show. It just means you've got a load of offal from it.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people get I don't know the correct term, but they feel like they've got a relationship with the show or the movie or whatever it is, and they feel
Mm-hmm.
like they have to sort of support the franchise,
Yeah.
which doesn't make a lot of sense when it's like a multi-billion-dollar company or pound company, and it's like you just giving them like effectively nothing. But it's a lot to you, but not a lot to them.
Yeah, exactly. You think, well, I've paid 10 quid for this. This means a lot to me and them. When in reality, a lot of these people who are coming up with the collectibles or the toys or whatever, or like the people who are like the figureheads and the faces of, like, let's say, Lego or a gaming company, I doubt that a lot of them are really that bothered. It's more so that the designers of the Lego sets or the designers of the game who are most probably more passionate about that, who you want to talk to. Well, the CEOs and the big wigs, they're just like, let's make a load of money off this. Come on, man. Let's get millions in our pockets. It's not one of those situations where it's like, oh, my game sold loads. I've got 3 stalkers, the world at my feet, and am I happy? No, I want more. That's how these. That's
So yeah, I think that another reason why people might become addicted is sort of what you said earlier, James. It's like a slow burn. It could start from sort of childhood. You could collect like say a few figures or like a few things from whatever franchise or movie or whatever it is. And then by the time you're sort of in your late teens or you're an early adult, you might have a decent sized collection of whatever. And then
Mhm.
it might only be like £2 here, £5 there, £10 there, a fiver there. And before you know it, most of your money's gone and you've just got just bits of plastic and
Yeah.
toys and things that don't really mean anything to you, but you sort of want to keep buying it because you did it when you were a kid, even though you could be obviously a lot older by now.
Yeah, and maybe it's one of those things where they're thinking to themselves of that childhood memory. That memory was so good because when you're a kid, things are a lot. You have sort of more fond memories of things when you're a kid in certain ways. Like things feel nostalgic. Like when I play an old game, when I play Battle for Bikini Bottom or Lego Star Wars, the complete saga. I have a lot of childhood memories. I have memories of playing that on the Wii with my dad. I have memories of SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, just playing it on the PS2, chilling on my own. It's just good fun. It's just good times. Replaying games like that for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated and Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. I don't. You're never going to feel that same nostalgia. You're never going to feel that same childhood nostalgia. You can still feel great and amazing about that game. You can still think that X game is the best ever, like a modern game that you're playing now is the best ever. But you're not going to feel that childhood nostalgia and memories because that time's gone and this time is now. Childhood nostalgia and teenage nostalgia, and you can have adult nostalgia and all that sort of stuff. Like at the end of the day, you people are probably trying to recapture nostalgia and get that childhood feeling back, but you're not going to get that back, and that's just part of life. That's part of growing up and what have you. So I feel like they're trying to cling on to stuff. Definitely, they're trying to cling on to nostalgia, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to. Well, they've almost got themselves into a habit of just, it could just be like a little thing here, a little thing there, but times that over, say, 30 years, and you could have spent hundreds or thousands
Yeah,
on stuff that you don't really like and you just sort of do for the sake of it.
definitely. So the final part of the discussion, general thoughts.
I don't really know what to. I don't know how to word it specifically for this part, but I think collecting overall, it's all right if it's done in moderation, which can be said for basically anything in life. But
Yeah,
if you've got the space, well, the most important thing is if you've got the money and if you've got the time and appreciation to actually stop and think what you've actually got, because
Mhm.
you might only have two things, but they could mean the world to you, and that's amazing. Good for you. Or you could have a room full of stuff that overall means a lot to you, but individually doesn't really mean that much to you, and that's fine as well, as long as you're not putting yourself into debt and as long as you're not causing harm to someone in some way by buying these things. I think collecting's all right, but obviously, if you go too far, then it's not good at all.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in my opinion, I think you should collect stuff that you're going to have some sort of enjoyment out of, or if you're spending a lot of money on something that you're going to use. Like if you're just buying a load of consoles and they're just lying around half the time, then what's the point? That's why I only have like three. Well, I have two consoles, a PS2, well, two PS2s, a broken fat PS2 and a slim PS2 that works, and two Xbox Ones, actually, a broken one and one that works. I just haven't been asked to get rid of the broken stuff yet. Not sort of like a hoarding thing. It's just like I haven't been asked to try and sell it or whatever, or just try and, I don't know, just sell it for parts, I guess. Or I think, well, yeah. Anyway, enough about that. So the point is, like, I've got two consoles that I use, and that's that. And obviously, I've got a gaming laptop which I use, and that's what I do most of my gaming on. Point being, like, I get use out of it. I don't just have a bunch of consoles for the sake of it. Also, with collecting, it sort of becomes harmful, obviously, if you have £0, but also if you value the collectibles, like you value your own life. Like if your house was burning down and you're trying to get collectibles out or throw your consoles out the window to save them or what have you, that is really unhealthy. At the end of the day, collectibles can be replaced, but your being can't be replaced. So I think as long as you don't love the collectibles too much, it's all right. Because at the end of the day, they are just objects. They're not beings. They're just objects. So chill out a bit. They're just collectibles. Also, yeah, you don't want your finances to be destroyed, and you don't want a stupid amount of mess. You don't want your room to be filled with absolute clutter and fluff. You want to have space to breathe and do stuff, you know. Fair enough. Any closing statements then?
So yeah, I think overall with collecting, if there is something that you're interested in, if something's nostalgic for you, then and if you get an opportunity to maybe purchase something like that, or if you're given it or you acquire it somehow, then yeah, that's all fair. But you don't have to collect anything. There's no pressure from anyone to buy stuff and fill up your house with clutter. You can do whatever you want, and obviously don't try and fall into these schemes of making someone rich by spending thousands on practically nothing.
Big fair play. Good answer. Thank you for your time, Aaron.
Thank you. Goodbye.
What's good, everyone? I am here with George to discuss collecting with him.
Hello.
And give him a few cheeky questions.
Go for it.
All right, then. So the first question I have for you, George, is what is collecting to you?
Collecting is enjoyment. And I think with collecting is the adventure of finding said item. Like if that's going to a con or just going down the road to your local shop. It's that the fun and the adventure. Then when you finally have that item, it's yours to have for as long as you want it, and for as many times you want to take it out of the box, to look at it, to play with it, to show it off, or even just to have it sit on your desk and look pretty there.
Thank you for that detailed answer, George. So, another question. Would you ever sell your collectibles or any of your collectibles? Say if they were worth an absolute fortune one day, would you ever sell it?
I have thought about selling some things over time. Like certain Funko Pops, I have found out that are worth a few £100. But I haven't thought about selling because I like to have a nice big collection, and when it comes to items like that, which have jumped up in price a bit, for me it's nice to say, look at this item I've got, and how much it's gone up by. Like another one of my collections is Pokemon, and I brought a very special card which James has seen before, and for £15, and now it's over £300. So it's items like that which I think make collections even more special, because you never know where they're going to go price wise either. They could stay at the retail price. They could drop down to pennies, but some items they might jump up in price. The Funko Pops that I mentioned were the Attack on Titan ones from the first season. Now, the ones that I have are very sorted after by the Attack on Titan community for the later seasons, like season 3 and I think season 4. But it gets a bit mixed up because they try to end seasons in like 3 or 4 parts, and I haven't really kept up with that show. But it's just to have them certain items that you know are special and that you've always had and always will have for as long as you want. Well, going back to the original question, would I sell my collection? If I fell out of love with that certain program or show, that's anything, or game, I probably would sell a few things like the Funko Pops. I'd sell the ones that I like the most. No, sorry, I'd sell the ones that I don't use but I know are worth a bit. But the ones I like the most out of the Funko Pops, I'd probably keep a few because there's other ones I've searched for again and again when quite a lot of them I've just brought off websites.
Good answers, good answers. So,
Thank you.
George, what has made the collection get so enormous? Because I know you've shown a few videos. I've obviously put them in the documentary. We've got some videos of your collection, but it's far, far bigger than that. Whatever made it get so massive to the level that it's at now?
Well, the reason it's got bigger is because there's a lot more programs and shows like anime shows or even new products made like Funko Pops. If we go back to 2010, nobody would have known what that is. And when it comes to something like my biggest collection being the Doctor Who collection, which you will probably see or have seen in the video, because of how long it's been going for, being that this year's the 60th year, you think I've been collecting since 2005, so there's been 5 different versions of the Doctor, who's the main character, who normally has 2 companions, which normally made it into figures as well. And then to top that all off, from series 1 up to about series 7, they did every single monster from the series adjacent to what was coming out at the time. And then you have the TARDISes, which are literally right up there. I can see them all there. There's 12 of them, and each of them goes with a Doctor. And being that we will be on the 15th Doctor, and that's not including John Hurt's War Doctor, there will be 16 different TARDIS variants to get. Now I've got 12, and 2 of them are from the same Doctor as well, being Tom Baker's Doctor. So just as the show progresses more and more, you might get more merchandise, but the collection would be a lot bigger if they kept producing a lot of Doctor Who merchandise during the Capaldi and Whittaker era, but they seem to slack on figures. But now Russell Davies is back, who's the one who got all these amounts of figures made with all the different aliens and things like that. And hopefully we should get more like that back soon.
If you had to sell one collectible, George, which one would it be right now if you had to pick?
One collectible right now, if I had to sell any, it would probably be my popcorn tins. Now, I know that's a weird answer, but over the years, because I have a cinema pass, I can go when I want to, and I've had promotions. I love to get the promotions like down to my right of me. I've got Star Wars tins from 3 different movies, with drink cups, which are of the Star Wars Trooper heads for them. Same with Fast and Furious 7 and 8. I've got a popcorn bucket for them and the drinks cup. And my newest one is the Wakanda Forever ones, which has the popcorn tin and the drinks cup with it. So I'd probably get rid of them.
Out of interest, are they worth a lot, the popcorn tins, or is it just something you get rid of if you absolutely had to?
They can be worth a bit. Like the Wakanda Forever one is around £20. Fast and Furious one, I'd say around the same price. But the Star Wars ones are a bit lower because of the later movies.
Mm-hmm. This might be the daftest question I've ever asked you, George. In the history of your existence on planet Earth, you might think, what the hell is this? Why are you asking me this for? But do you think at some point in your life you'll ever stop collecting?
To be honest, that actually isn't that much of a silly question. I see a lot of collectors stop at the moment, like with certain shows, like with Doctor Who, with Jodie Whittaker's era. A lot of people got disinterested and fell out of love with the show because it didn't feel like Doctor Who anymore, because of certain storylines and the way that Chris Chibnall basically ran the show, not involving the old audience, which the show always has done. People, I was reading a tweet the other day. Somebody had given their whole Doctor Who collection to their neighbour because they just fell out of love with what had been done to the show. So I think no, I don't think I would, because even if Doctor Who was destroyed for me, which at one point it nearly was, with certain storylines basically trying to wreck characters that I've loved for how many years now, since 2005. So 18, 19 years. I could have stopped for a few series then. But I'd still have other collections to carry on with, like my Funko Pops, my Lego, and a weird one is my signed items. I have quite a few signed items from TV shows and anime that I watch, where I, I had the actors or presenters signatures, and I've met them, even got pictures with them, or like when we went to Comic-Con, I met a voice actor there and I got a signed photo from her. So I've always liked that signed kind of stuff as well. So there would always be something for me to keep collecting. So, in a short answer, no, I wouldn't stop collecting.
Fair play, George. Thank you so much for your answers and your time. Fair dues.
Thank you very much.